Hello! I am Teacher QA. I am so excited to teach you our lesson for today. These are our content standard, performance standard, and most essential learning competency in English 10 Quarter 4. At the end of the lesson, students are expected to define formal, informal, and expanded definitions, identify formal, informal, and expanded definitions, identify the sources of expanded definitions, and give expanded definitions of words. Now let's get started. Definition. What is definition? A definition is a statement of the meaning of a term, such as a word, phrase, or other set of symbols. The purpose of a definition is to explain the meaning of a term which may be obscure or difficult by the use of terms that are commonly understood and whose meaning is clear. Expanded definition. An expanded definition is a one or more paragraphs that attempt to explain a complex term. It uses a combination of formal and informal definitions. But what are formal and informal definitions? One of the first things to do when you write an expanded definition is to compose the formal sentence definition of the term you are writing about. Place it toward the beginning of the expanded definition. It establishes the focus for the rest of the discussion. Formal definition is composed of the term being defined, the class of object or concept to which the term belongs, and its distinguishing characteristics that distinguish it from all others of its class. Example: comic books are sequential and narrative publications consisting of illustrations, captions, dialogue, balloons, and often focus on superpowered heroes. The term being defined: comic books. The class of object or concept to which the term belongs: sequential and narrative publications, and its distinguishing characteristics that distinguish it from all others of its class, consisting of illustrations, captions, dialogue balloons, and often focus on superpowered heroes. It is formal because it uses a certain form. Take particular care when you write the reference to the class to which the term belongs. It sets up a larger frame of reference or context. It gives readers something familiar to associate the term with. The term may belong to a class of tools, diseases, geological processes, electronic components. It may be a term from the field of medicine, computer science, agriculture, reprographics, or finance. Avoid vague references to the class the term belongs to. For example, instead of calling a concussion an injury or botulism a medical problem, call them something more specific, like a serious head injury and a severe form of food poisoning, respectively. Similarly, provide plenty of specific details in the characteristics component of the formal sentence definition. Readers need these details to begin forming their own understanding the term you are defining. Informal definition is where the writer uses known words and examples to explain an unknown term. The definition may include synonyms or antonyms introduced by or, in other words, like. It could also be stipulation, analogy, or illustration. Example, freedom, also referred to as liberty or independence, is a state people reach when they are free to think and do whatever they please. Synonyms or antonyms, also referred to as liberty or independence. Stipulation, analogy, or illustration, state people reach when they are free to think and do whatever they please. Expanded definition. It provides the meaning of an idea or word that has components of both informal and informal definitions but is presented in a longer paragraph format. When you write an expanded definition, you literally grab at any of the writing resources or tools that will help you explain the term to your readers. This means considering all of the various sources of information that can help define the term adequately. For example, description, process narration, causal discussion, and classification. Notice how many different kinds of writing are indicated in the examples in this chapter. The key to writing a good expanded definition is to choose the sources of definition to help readers understand the term being defined. Use this checklist to select the kinds of discussion to include in your extended definitions. Sources of expanded definition. Number 1, description. Number 2, process narration. Number 3, additional definitions. Number 4, historical background. Number 5, causes. Number 6, effects, results, consequences. Number 7, problems and solutions. Number 8, statistics. Number 9, uses and applications. Number 10, similarities, differences, and analogies. Number 11, classes, types, and categories. Number 12, examples. Number 13, future developments and implications. Number 14, word origins. Number 15, negatives. And number 16, advantages and disadvantages. Number 1, description. Does anything related to the term being defined need to be described? Number 2, process narration. Is there some process, natural or social, associated with the term that should be discussed? Number 3, additional definitions. Do unfamiliar terms occurring in the definition also need definition? Number 4, historical background. Is there some history, some key individuals related to term being defined? Would that discussion contribute to the definition of the term? Number 5, causes. Does the reader need to know about causes related to the term being defined? Number 6, effects, results, and consequences. Does the reader need to know about effects related to the term being defined? Number 7, problems and solutions. Does the term being defined represent a problem or a solution? Number 8. Statistics. Should you discuss numerical data related to the term defined, such as percentages, amounts, etc.? Number 9. Uses and applications. Would it help to discuss uses or applications related to the term? Number 10. Similarities, differences, and analogies. Is the term similar to or different from something else? Would an analogy help define the term? Number 11. Classes, types, and categories. Are there categories that the term can be divided into? Does it belong to a certain category? Number 12. Examples. Would examples contribute to the definition of a term? Number 13. Future developments and implications. Should future developments related to the term be discussed? Does it have implications, good, bad, or both? Number 14. Word origins. Would an understanding of the roots, the etymology of the word help define it? Number 15. Negatives. Would explaining what the term is not, what it does not refer to, help? And number 16. Advantages and disadvantages. Are there advantages and disadvantages related to the term that can be discussed? Let's have an example. Let us use the word arbitration. Number 1. Etymology or word origin. Arbitration, from Latin word arbitrary, for judgment. Number 2. History or background. Long before laws were established, or courts were organized, or judges formulated principles of law, men had resorted to arbitration for the resolving of discord, the adjustment of differences, and the settlement of disputes. One of the earliest arbitrators was Solomon. In a book by El-Khoury and Al-Khoury, How Arbitration Works, 1960, the authors not only stated that Solomon was an arbitrator, but also noted that the procedure used by him was in many respects similar to that used by arbitrators today. An account of one of Solomon's arbitrations in the Old Testament is found in 1 Kings chapter 3 verses 16 to 28. Number 3. Cause and effect. In the case of arbitration, cause and effect may be the same as the history. Number 4. Description, listing and defining the component parts. Arbitration is conducted by a trained arbiter who sets down the rules that the parties must abide by. Number 5. Principles of operation. From Abron ADR Services. Send the other party notice of your intent to pursue arbitration. The claimant, person initiating the case, sends the respondent a demand letter. This letter states the desire to submit the dispute to arbitration either by means of the contract arbitration clause or by mutual consent. Number 6. Classification, showing how the term fits into a larger category. Arbitration is one of the alternatives to going into a formal court to settle disputes. Number 7. Contrast or negation. In an arbitration proceeding, no lawyers are present. Number 8. Comparison, showing how it is similar to others in the class. As with lawsuits or other court proceedings, the decision in an arbitration proceeding is legally binding on the parties. Number 9. Analogy, explaining by comparing two dissimilar topics where the second is familiar to the audience. An arbiter is like a referee. He or she listens to both sides and makes a decision as to who is at fault without the intervention of outside parties. Number 10. Example. Arbitration was recently used to settle the dispute between the labor union and management. And number 11. Illustrations. Examples of expanded definition. Freedom. Freedom is a state people reach when they are free to think and do whatever they please. To our colonial forefathers, freedom meant having a voice in their government. The Revolutionary War was the last resort against an empire that continued to tax its colonists without the representation of the colonists in parliament. Since the United States won the right to rule itself, our country has been referred to as the land of the free and the home of the brave. True freedom means the ability to think, feel, say, or act however one chooses. It is a state where the bars of bondage do not exist. Unfortunately, the widening gap between the haves and have-nots means that some are now shackled by their lack of education. Americans can attain real freedom when everyone has the same educational opportunities. This is an example of expanded definition. These are the sources of expanded definition of the term freedom. Formal definition, historical reference, example, listing parts, negation or negatives, and parenthetical definition. Let's have another example, Alzheimer's disease. First described in 1907 by Alois Alzheimer, a German physician, Alzheimer's disease is an adult-onset neurological disorder of unknown etiology or cause, manifested by loss of memory, impaired thought processes, and abnormal behavior. When the illness begins before the age of 65, it is termed Alzheimer's disease. When onset is after 65, it is referred to as senile dementia of the Alzheimer's type. Approximately 5% of the US population over 65 have severe dementia. An additional 10% have mild to moderate impairment in memory and cognition. Of these demented individuals, approximately 40 to 50% have Alzheimer's disease, making this disorder the most common cause of dementia in middle and later life. Affected individuals are at first forgetful, As the memory disorder gradually worsens, the individuals, although able to recall occurrences in the distant past, are unable to remember recent events. Subsequently, speech, the ability to calculate, visual orientation, judgment, and social behavior become progressively abnormal. Eventually, the individuals become profoundly demented and frequently die of intercurrent infection. This is an example of an expanded definition. These sources of expanded definition are used. Formal sentence definition begins this expanded definition. Quick parenthetical definition of a potentially unfamiliar term. Supplementary definitions used within this extended definition. Demographics or statistics used to further define the term. Process of the disease. And should intercurrent be defined for non-specialist readers? How to make an expanded definition? Compose a formal sentence definition of the term you are going to define. Place it toward the beginning of the expanded definition. It establishes the focus for the rest of the discussion. An extended definition starts with the sentence definition, but then expands on the word by providing additional sentences using a combination of the sources of definition and as reflected in the two examples above. The extended definition requires students to define or describe something by beginning with a formal definition. Fill in the term generally provided by the teacher in the initial blank and then complete the second blank with an appropriate category. And the third part, which is the term's characteristics. From there, provide specific information about the item by responding to as many of the following questions as you can. The following are just some of the guide questions that will help you make your expanded definition. The complete set is found in the previous page. How does it work? Operation. What are its parts? Description. What does it look like? Description. What does it do? Process. Can it be compared to anything familiar? Comparison. How is it used? Purpose. What is its origin and background? History. What is it not like? Comparison. Let's have this example. Butterfly. How does it work? What are its parts? The life cycle has 4 parts: egg, larva or caterpillar, pupa or chrysalis, and adult. What does it look like? It has 2 colorful wings, a thorax, and 6 legs, and an antenna. What does it do? It flutters from flower to flower during the day to eat nectar. Can it be compared to anything familiar? It is similar to a moth. How is it used? What is its origin and background? What is it not like? In paragraph form, a butterfly is a nectar-feeding insect with 2 pairs of large, typically brightly colored wings that are covered with microscopic scales. It has 4 parts to its life cycle: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The larva stage is the caterpillar stage. The insect then forms a chrysalis in its pupa stage. It changes to a butterfly with colorful wings antenna, a thorax, and 6 legs. The butterfly flutters from flower to flower during the day to eat nectar. It is similar to a moth. Note: the first sentence, which is italicized, is a formal definition and starts your expanded definition. The rest of the sentences which are in bold, including the first sentence, the entire paragraph, is an expanded definition. And that is all about expanded definition. Now let's have some activities. Activity 1. Directions. Identify what is asked or defined in each of the following sentences. Choose the letter of the correct answer. A. Definition. B. Formal definition. C. Expanded definition. D. Informal definition. Number 1. It is the specification of the meaning of an expression relative to a language. Answer is A. Definition. Number 2. It is a technique where analogy, descriptions, analysis, metaphors, and more are used to expand or expound the term or concepts. Answer is C. Expanded definition. Number 3. It follows the pattern of term plus class or genus plus distinguished characteristics or differentia. Answer is B. Formal definition. Number 4. What is the technique in defining the term family in the sentence below? Family is the basic unit of the society. Answer is D. Informal definition. Number 5. What is the technique in defining the concept of sensory imagery? Sensory imagery is any description that involves one or more of the 5 senses. Answer is B. Formal definition. Number 6. What technique is used to define the term myth in the sentence below? A myth is a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of people or explaining some natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving supernatural beings or events. Answer is B. Formal definition. Number 7. It goes deeper than a simple dictionary definition. Answer is C. Expanded definition. Number 8. This definition may be synonyms or antonyms introduced by or, in other words, or like. Answer is D. Informal definition. Number 9. This definition is composed of the term being defined, the class it belongs to, and its distinguishing characteristics. Answer is B. Formal definition. Number 10. It is a statement of the meaning of a term, such as a word, phrase, or other set of symbols. Answer is A. Definition. Now let's have activity 2, directions. Read and analyze to answer the questions below. In the items containing choices, choose the letter of the correct answer. Number 1. A definition is a statement of the meaning of a term, such as a word, phrase, or other set of symbols. Number 2. Which of the following definitions contains statistical data? Letter A. Approximately 5% of the U.S. population over 65 have severe dementia, while another 10 have mild to moderate impairment of memory and cognition. Of these demented individuals, approximately 40 to 50% have Alzheimer's disease, making it the most common cause of dementia in middle and later life. Letter B. Life on Earth is possible because there is liquid water, a blanket of life-supporting gases, and a climate neither too warm nor too cold. Human beings may now be altering this balance by adding unusual amounts of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. This could make the global climate warmer than at any other time in human history, and this change would be irreversible. Letter C. The output produced by a computer program may contain error messages, which indicate the presence of errors in the program. These messages are generated by the computer system to help the programmer in correcting these errors, also known as bugs. Severe errors can cause the processing to be terminated or aborted. Answer is letter A. Number 3. Which of the following contains a formal sentence definition? A. Stress is a measure of the internal reaction between elementary particles of a material in resisting separation, compacting, or sliding that tend to be induced by external forces. Letter B. The resisting forces within the material are made up of continuously distributed, normal, and tangential forces that are of varying magnitude and direction and act on elementary areas throughout the material. Letter C. These forces can be distributed uniformly or non-uniformly and can be categorized as tensile, compressive, or shearing according to the straining action. Answer is letter A. Number 4. Which is the term to be defined in the formal sentence definition below? Stress is a measure of the internal reaction between elementary particles of a material in resisting separation, compacting, or sliding that tend to be induced by external forces. Letter A, measure. Letter B, external forces. Letter C, stress. Letter D, internal reaction. Answer is letter C, stress. Number 5. When you write an expanded definition, a paragraph or more in length, you should put which of the following at or very near the beginning. Letter A, formal sentence definition of the term. Letter B, technical description of the term. Letter C, informal sentence definition of the term. Or letter D, list of the primary or distinguishing characteristics of the term. Answer is letter A, formal sentence definition of the term. Now let's have activity 3, directions. Using the same text in the previous activity, identify the source of expanded definition each item number had utilized. The so-called greenhouse effect is an atmospheric process by which a portion of the sun's heat is trapped within the Earth's atmosphere, making the Earth's surface warmer than it would otherwise be. Life on Earth is possible because there is liquid water, a blanket of life-supporting gases, and a climate neither too warm nor too cold. Number 1. Human beings may now be altering this balance by adding unusual amounts of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Number 2. This could make the global climate warmer than at any other time in human history. And this change would be irreversible. The atmosphere contains 75% nitrogen, 23% oxygen with argon, water vapor, and trace gases, including carbon dioxide, making up the remaining 2%. Number 3. Carbon dioxide is an odorless, colorless gas which constitutes about 0.035%. It is essential for photosynthesis. Number 4. The process by which the sun's energy is converted into forms usable by plants and animals. Number 5. Carbon dioxide affects the heat balance by acting as a one-way screen. It is transparent to incoming visible sunlight and allows the sun's heat to warm the ocean and the land. But carbon dioxide molecules block some of the infrared heat radiated back into space. This reflected heat is absorbed into the lower atmosphere. This is the so-called greenhouse effect. Here are the answers. Number 1, cause. Number 2, effect or consequence or result. Number 3, additional or short definition. Number 4, additional or short definition. And number 5, process. Now let's have activity 4, directions. Give an expanded definition for each term below. You are given sets of definitions for every term. Organize them in a paragraph to form an expanded definition. Pay attention to the words in the table as they will set as your guide as to the order of the sentences comprising your expanded definition. That's all for today. See you in our next lesson. Goodbye.